A sun salutation is a specific sequence of poses most often practiced in vinyasa and power vinyasa yoga flows. It's a full body exercise that matches breath with movement to warm up your body, increase your blood flow, and focus your mind. To practice a sun salutation, and for this one, just watch. You'll begin in a standing position and inhale as you reach your arms up into mountain pose. Then exhale as you hinge forward into a forward fold. Next, you'll inhale into a halfway lift to lengthen your spine, then exhale to plant your hands, step your feet back into a swift high to low plank. Upward facing dog as you inhale, then downward facing dog as you exhale. And then repeat by inhaling to look up, bend your knees. Exhale to step your feet to the top of your space for halfway lift as you inhale, then forward fold as you exhale. Inhale to mountain pose, exhale to fold, and so on, continuing the movement. Easy, right? No. This is actually a common area of confusion and quick transitions, so let's break it down. You can watch a breakdown for each of those individual poses in the Yoga Pose Breakdown section of the SarahBethYoga app. But the middle, that halfway lift to Chaturanga to up dog to down dog, that part can be really quick and confusing. So let's break that part down without any focus on breath. And you're welcome to just watch, or if you're warmed up, like you've done a few cat cows, did a little bit of down dog, then you can practice along and join me on the mat in a forward fold at the top of your space. From a forward fold, set up a halfway lift with your hands on your thighs, shoulder blades pinching together behind you, and your neck in line with your spine. This allows you to hinge at your hips so you can create a flat back. From here, first, practice stepping back into a high plank quickly. So bend your knees, plant your hands down, shoulder distance on your mat, then step your feet back into high plank. Great. Now go back to your halfway lift and we'll do it again. When you're ready, plant your hands and step your feet back. And if you feel like you need a little more practice with this transition, then pause here and do it a couple more times on your own. Next, let's practice Chaturanga, high to low plank. But here, let's practice the modified version with your knees down. So with your knees down in a modified high plank, that means your head, shoulders, hips, and knees are all in one line. Turn the pits of your elbows forward and bend your elbows directly back as you lower your planked body down halfway, then stop when your elbows graze your ribs. So that was a modified high to modified low plank. Basically a modified Chaturanga. Really focus on keeping your body in that planked position so we can do it one more time. Bend your elbows directly back as you lower your planked body down halfway and stop when your elbows graze your ribs. And from here, press into your hands and the tops of your feet to lift your chest up into upward facing dog. This is a big active back bend, so firm up your thighs to keep your legs hovering above the mat. Stay here and breathe. And for the transition from up dog to down dog, you'll use your strength to lift your hips up as you curl your toes under and press your chest towards your thighs. Some people can roll over their toes in a smooth motion, but if you're like me and you go 1 foot at a time, that's totally fine. And feel free to adjust your stance as needed when you do get into down dog. So now really just take a break, take a seat, and just watch the screen for a difference between the traditional Chaturanga and a modified Chaturanga with a side-by-side demo in a forward fold with a long inhale to halfway lift, then exhale high to low plank. Inhale right into upward facing dog, exhale to downward facing dog. And I'll repeat it one more time so you can gather more visual cues between traditional, which I consider to be advanced, and modified, which I recommend as your main practice of the sequence. See how quick those transitions are? That's why it's essential to take the time to practice each transition, or even to slow it down, like 2 breaths, 1 movement, so you can refine your own transitions. So now let's put it all together and practice the entire sun salutation A. Meet me in downward facing dog, and we'll do a couple of rounds so that we can really smooth it out. And I'll use fewer cues each round. So in your downward facing dog, inhale to look up to your hands and bend your knees. Exhale to step your feet to the top of your mat into a forward fold. Halfway lift as you inhale, finding your flat back. Then forward fold as you exhale, with a soft bend in your knees. Inhale to mountain pose, come all the way up, arms reach up. Exhale to forward fold, come all the way down, and you'll need to pace your breath for these. Next is halfway lift, inhale. Then exhale to fold, plant your hands, step your feet back, high to low plank. Inhale to upward facing dog, yes, it's quick. Exhale to downward facing dog. And you can rest and watch this next round or practice alongside with me, fewer cues. From down dog, inhale to look up, bend your knees. Exhale, forward fold at the top of your mat. Inhale to halfway lift, find your flat back. Then exhale, fold. Inhale, mountain pose, come all the way up. Exhale, forward fold. Halfway lift as you breathe in. High to low plank as you breathe out. Pace your breath. Upward facing dog, inhale. Downward facing dog, exhale. And breathe. One more round. You can rest and watch or follow along. Minimal cues this time. From down dog, inhale, look up. Exhale, step up into your forward fold. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Mountain pose. Forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, high to low. Upward facing dog to downward facing dog. And that's it. If you were following along, you're done. You did great. Take a break. Wherever you practice that sequence, be mindful that you're not rushing through the movements or straining for a more advanced variation of the poses. This sequence should be a sustainable part of your practice, so I highly recommend taking modifications or just slowing it down, even taking 2 breaths, 1 movement, anytime you're feeling tired or strained. As I mentioned earlier, you can modify your Chaturanga with your knees down, which is an ideal way to build strength and muscle memory. But another modification that is welcome in this sequence is taking a low cobra instead of an upward facing dog. This modification can be very welcoming if you're working on building back strength as a beginner, postpartum, or any other time that up dog is just too intense of a back bend for where you are in your practice. The variation I just showed you with mountain pose at the beginning is called a Sun Salutation A, usually found at the beginning of a vinyasa or power vinyasa yoga class. After a Sun A, you'll typically practice a Sun Salutation B with more intense poses like chair in the standing sequence and a unilateral sequence of lunges and warrior poses done on the right side and then the left from your downward facing dog. Side note, we traditionally start with our right leg as the right side of our body is the side of sun energy, bringing active, warming energy to our practice. It's also said that starting with your right helps improve digestion, but it's not going to back you up if you ever practice your left side first, so don't worry. Occasionally, you'll also experience a Sun Salutation C, which does not include a standing posture at the front, but instead it repeats unilateral poses from the right to left sides and will sometimes turn to face the back of your mat for a half or full mandala. A half mandala meaning that you'll turn to the back, then turn to the front, facing the same side. A full mandala meaning that you turn to the back, then continue turning in that same direction to the front, taking a full circle. The Sun Salutation A is a staple sequence in the Vinyasa and Power Vinyasa yoga styles. I highly recommend that you modify as much as possible while taking your time to practice each pose and each transition so you can flow with confidence, strength, and ease within your own practice or next time you experience it in your yoga class.